It's saying preparing to live stream. And we're live.
We are live. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to Courageous Conversation. It is your host, T. And typically what I see after this is my co-host, Other T, but Other T won't not be joining us today. He has some, what can I say? Some things to take care of. So we have a amazing co-host here, Crystal, Miss Crystal Saylor, joining us on today's Courageous Conversation. So I don't want to take too much time and, talking about, kind of like the house rules here. So if you can go ahead and click that like and subscribe button right there at the bottom. And click that little, I think it's like a little ringer if you want to hear or know or receive a notification anytime we drop a new Courageous Conversation. And it's okay. It's okay if you want to leave a thumbs down. I mean, it's okay to disagree. But if you do leave a thumbs down, can you just please go ahead and just in the comment, just say why? Why'd you put a thumbs down? Today's Courageous Conversation is going to be about one of my most favorite topics, especially for this month, considering it's Black History Month, which is Black History. Now, typically what we do in a Courageous Conversation, we kind of list off the questions and we kind of just let everyone obviously just answer it. But today, I think we want to do things a little bit different today. I think today is going to be just an open conversation on the topics that we have written up. So kind of, obviously at the beginning, I like to have everyone kind of just go around and introduce themselves. Now, we do have a couple people that have been on our Courageous Conversations before. So if you just kind of just bounce around and just, introduce yourselves, a little bit about you, and then we can go right into the conversation. Crystal, you want to lead off?
Okay. Well, I'm Crystal. You've seen me before. I'm one of the co-founders of Bridge the Gap and the producer of this Courageous Conversations program. I'm happy to be filling in for our co-host, Tyler, as his very proud mama. But he is at school on a Sunday afternoon. So it was important that he was there today, but we wanted to make sure that this conversation happened. So I'm filling in. Let's throw it to
so nervous starting off. Like I got a first shot. I finally got a mic, so I'm feeling like official today. So I'm like an official podcaster here. So if y'all you notice my new little addition here.
You feel official now.
I feel official.
Maybe throw it to our board member Tyrone.
Tyrone, I was on one of the first ones we did. I'm on the board. I'm an IT professional. And came to give my time in, give my little opinions and talk about Black history and the importance of it. And it should be a yearly thing, but we'll talk about that, I'm sure.
Yes, we will. Miss Porter.
Okay, good afternoon. My name is Michelle Porter. I am a veteran teacher for Chicago Public Schools. I've been at Tilden High School for 20 years in the social science department. And so I can't wait for us to jump into this conversation.
Mr. Thomas.
Hey, I'm Thomas. I'm also a veteran. I'm a business owner now. I'm from Chicago. I went to Harlan High School.
Pleasure having you, Thomas, man. Familiar face here. Mr. Dixon, last one. I like that. I like your back. It's a nice car.
Thank you. Rodney Dixon. Been in executive management, corporate development for some time. Entrepreneur, capitalist. I enjoy business, the aspect of business, and I reign from Georgia.
Thank you, Mr. Dixon. We have that's really neat. We got a couple of entrepreneurs on here. I know. Actually, this our next. I shouldn't give it away, but our next Courageous Conversation will be about entrepreneurship and business. So, Definitely love to have you guys on again. Crystal, did you want to go ahead and kind of go over our first kind of topic here, what we want to discuss?
Right. So, as we are closing out Black History Month, and Bridge the Gap Prime is, an organization that works with young people. And so when we were discussing what we were going to talk about next on our next courageous conversation, obviously was brought up that it was Black History Month. So naturally, we should be discussing that. And so when I started to, inquire more, that's what us teachers do. It's a line of inquiry and asking questions. And the question came about, what are we celebrating? Are we learning history? Are we celebrating the culture? And, what are our roles in society? So I pose that question now to the people on this call. What is the purpose of Black History Month?
I can go ahead and start this off. So I'm just gonna go over what does Black History Month mean to me, and why should we celebrate it? Well, being as a Black man, I think that the biggest thing is to obviously know the history and know how it has, or how do we get um, to where we are today as a Black race. And I think that you have to learn and study the history to have an understanding of that, right? Because if you don't understand the history, then how can you ever uh,
Know where
have
you're
a
going.
solution or solve a problem, right? Like when you go to the doctor's office, the doctor is looking for the root cause, right? He's not, he's going to look at symptoms, but if he continues to look at symptoms, I mean, you're never going to ever figure out, what the true issue is, right? He goes to the root. So I think that in order for, Black people in America, in order for us to get to a better place, we have to learn and know our history. Because if we don't know that, then we are in trouble. My biggest influence in learning, about Black history is Mr. Dr. Claude Anderson. Oh my God, if you guys have not, I have all his books. I got,
The only
Powernomics.
books
I got all of them. If you don't know anything about Dr. Claude Anderson, I would say you should definitely look on YouTube and research, him, because he will. It's unbelievable.
Break
And I'm
it down.
not talking about the history we learned in our social studies class. I'm not talking about that. I'm actually talking about true history, right? So yeah, that's why, because if we don't understand, where we came from and the history behind it, then I mean, how do we ever come up with solutions to fix the problems that we still face today? So that's why, so this is why this is a very sensitive and touchy conversation today, because I think that it's important that we understand our history. Because just think about it: if you don't learn about your history, if you just kind of forget about it, then how do we ever be like get out of these issues that we are in today without knowing the background of it?
Tyler, I think you bring up two very good points. You made a distinction between what you learned from Claude Anderson versus not the history in the social studies classroom. Mm-hmm. So I think what you're alluding to is the fact that teachers in the public school system often have a curriculum to follow. And historically speaking, prior to 1926, when Carter G. Woodson advocates for this Negro History Week, which later becomes Black History Month, the scholarship around Black people in America was not written by Black people. The scholarship around Black people in America was written by white historians who had this paternalistic view of what the enslaved community was. And so it wasn't until Blacks began to take ownership of chronicling their own history, and not, I shouldn't say chronicling, because even within the enslaved community, you have women creating these quilts to tell their stories. So even if I can't read, I can still tell the story. I can tell my story. And so as we, Black people, began to say, we are going to own the scholarship around the history of Blacks in America, which means that we have to go back to our African roots and embrace that. Teachers maybe did some things if it was in the curriculum. In the 1960s, you have scores of teachers that sneak and teach Black history in schools. Before Kennedy King College was Kennedy King College, it was Wilson Junior College. And the students actually held a sit-in because they wanted the name of the school to be changed. They wanted to have a Black history department. And so where do we marry this idea of real education versus white supremacist education? And so I think that's kind of what you're alluding to, that you have the ability to read authors who tell the real history. And I don't know if everybody appreciates that.
Yeah, everybody, this is Rodney. Everybody does not, and you're correct, does not appreciate it. The truth sometimes become unbearable to those that have another agenda. So the important, why do we celebrate Black History Month? We celebrate it because we have to concentrate. I think we have to concentrate on it being every day. When we have to start, when we start saying we're going to do business with Black businesses, we have to ask ourselves, why hadn't we? And then you look back at systematic things that were put in place to disorganize us from our own agenda. So now we're in the 21st century, and the reason why we're celebrating Black History Month is because Black History Month, or Black history, has been all but void in the history teaching, nationwide in our system, because the truth is really unbearable for a lot of people. So when we get, I think someone has alluded to this, why are we doing Black History Month when really it should be ingrained in America since we built America, that Black history is not a month, but Black history is a way of this society became what it is. And I think until we look at it's evident that there are people still in power that have been hereditary handed down, that systematic racism has been handed down from one congressperson to another, from one senator to another, and you go back to those states, and that's where it's at. So it's clear they don't want Black history. They don't want Black in the history of this nation. So you're looking at a group of people that really took this nation. So you think after taking this nation, you want to give credit to the people that helped you build this nation after you took it from somebody else. So I think it's important for us. I think when you get into Dr. Claude and them, and the other people that are out there that's pushing this, we gotta look at the fact they've been pushing it for a long time, but they've been unheard because I don't think the pain was bad enough. So now that the pain is bad enough, we're like, okay, we're tired of this oppression. We got other people waking up. We're tired of systematic racism. We looked at the legal system, and now marijuana is a legal drug in a lot of states, but you imprison a large group, a large swath of African American and brown people, because you said that this drug was so bad. But now you legalize it, and you created a multi-billion-dollar industry. So we look at systematic. So systematically, it should never been outlawed. Systematically, it was done for a certain purpose. You look at different things. So I'm not going to go too further, but history, we are the history of this nation, buried deep down in the catacombs of this nation. We are the history of this nation. But they don't want us. They want us to be a cultural bebop, R&B, hip hop. That's what they want to identify us with, but not to the intellectual properties that this nation has gotten because of us. Agriculture being one of them. So I digress.
No, you did not digress at all, Mr. Dixon. You that's far from digressing. You hit a lot of great points there. Anybody else want to comment on that?
It's like caveat off that of when Trump was in office, and they were trying to put that bill to only get rid of basically teachers preaching, about Black history. I can't remember the bill exactly, but especially in the whole Bible state, or whatever you call it, down south, they were preaching that real tough. And that made it real apparent, like, okay, what's really going on? You know, what are you so afraid of? You know, having your kids really learn the truth. You know, and that's a problem. You know, I can remember in school, you know, not being taught, but then my father, when I get home, me having to read books. Like the first black book I was about Thurgood Marshall. You know, I'll never forget it. And then I go try to talk about that in class, and I'm, you know, getting suspended for speaking up. You know, but now times are different. But you know.
And I just want to go on the record. Go ahead, Thomas.
I was just going to say that I'm a little bit conflicted about Black History Month, especially when Tyrone just said it. He said, what are you afraid of your kids learning the truth? Why are you afraid? I'm a strong believer in, you know, history. In order for history not to repeat itself, you should learn it. You need to know it so that it doesn't repeat itself. But then again, I look at it as why don't we have a White History Month? I feel like it creates a dynamic of resentment towards the disingenuous empathy that some white woke people make. And I also feel like it gives that resentment, or reminds the resentment of the racist white man. And not just racist white men, but racist people in general. I feel like Black history is American history, so it shouldn't be divided and separated the way that we do it. And then it's ironic that, I mean, I can go on and say how ironic it is that it's the shortest month of the year. And I just feel like you relegate our whole history into this one, you know, month. And then do we learn it at all? Like everyone stated, are we really learning Black History Month? Do we know about Louis Lattimore, who actually helped Thomas Edison build the light bulb? He created the carbon filming. Or Marie Van Britten Brown, who created the security systems that we use in our homes every day. Things that a lot of us don't know, but we'll be taught about, you know, Betsy Ross, her great, remarkable ability to use a needle and thread and sew a banner together, a flag, you know, or Paul Revere being able to hop on a horse and scream. You know, we know those things, but we don't know the real deep things that really molded America in itself. So I do think that I used to be for Black History Month, but now I feel like it's kind of whitewashed, or they give us all these feel-good stories now. And I feel like, you know, it needs to be raw. If we're going to learn something about America, it should be in the rawest form that we could create.
Yeah, go ahead, Mr. Sporter.
Let me just clear something up. So again, historically, it was Negro History Week, and the reason Negro History Week was introduced by Carter G. Woodson is exactly the same point that Thomas is trying to make. The reason it was introduced in February was to coincide with Frederick Douglass' birthday and Abraham Lincoln's birthday. So that's why it's in February. Not that it's the shortest month, but when they were introducing this idea of being able to teach the history of Black people, the month was chosen because of whose birthdays were in February. I will say this, we do have White History Month. It's 12 months a year. History in the United States is written by the people who are in power.
Exactly.
I mean, that's who, and that's the history that we have taught generationally. It has been taught by the people who are in power. And so we have to include other voices.
I think,
sorry, that's the only point.
Well, I think what's important too is that understand, until we get there, it's like, okay, why do we have fair housing? We don't have fair housing for white folk. Why we got civil rights? We don't got civil rights for white folk. We got civil rights for people of color. We got fair housing because of people of color until we get there. So when you look back over history at the grandfathers that did not get the GI Bill, that's because it was no fairness. So they didn't get the GI Bill, but the white brothers got the GI Bill. So therefore, generational inheritance and wealth, rather, generational wealth and the inheritance of that home did not come for many years. So you got 3, 4, 5 generations plus from the ships docking in the Carolinas and in Florida to now to where here we are right now. We're at a point in time that we put things in place until we get what is rightfully ours without having to have legislation, because there's such a large group of those people that control such a large piece of wealth that don't want us to participate, period. So we have a Black History Month because we need something until they give us our due. Until they give us our full check, we want this. This is the deposit. But we want that mother, let me be careful. We want that check cash. That check, that bill is come due. We want that check cash. That's why we must not let up. We should shove Black History Month down their throat until we don't need to have a Black History Month, because it's embedded in the educational books that they're teaching in these universities that still got these white folk come out, get to Fortune 500 companies, and still have a superiority complex saying that no, those folk, they good for this level, but not for that high top, that level of executive on the board, that level of executive, the president, the chairman, the CEO. So when you look at, give us this crumb of bread for right now, but we coming back for the full cake. Matter of fact, we coming back for the grocery store, and that's the mission we're on. That's the mission we're on. We wish we didn't have to have them break us off of legislation, and still we look at things like this. The Voting Rights Act may be in jeopardy. There's a Supreme Court hearing. Why we hear stuff like that? You know why? Because there's a large group of people with a lot of money, a lot of power that's still walking around, that's handed down this hypocrisy, this falsehood of power. And so therefore, until further notice, we're gonna hold that bill due. And we're gonna come cash some checks on the way.
Go ahead, Thomas.
I agree. I agree with the overall goal for what we want, not just for Black Americans, but for every American. And again, like I said, we're always dividing Black America, white American, Hispanic American, or whatever, but we're all American. We're all people. We're all human beings. I think that my biggest thing is that I don't, as important it is to learn the history, I don't believe that dwelling on the history is going to solve our problems. Our history is our history, and we cannot change that. And I believe that the more that racism exists, but the more we talk about it, and the more it is here. So if we talk about it and we only talk about racism, where will we get? Because that's all we've been doing is talking. I think that one of the things that we need to do is just remind ourselves that, there's always better. And I believe that not only better for us financially, stability wise, but there's a lot more to gain from in our life completely. And the best way to do that is to not dwell on the past, I believe. I think that the best thing for us to do is stop looking for an excuse. Like, honestly, we're all doing something predominantly, productive in our life. And I believe that in order to push that mark onto everybody, especially in our urban neighborhoods where most of us are from, I think the best thing for us to do is to push the agenda that where we are in that moment isn't reality. It isn't what the end goal is, and that there is better somewhere else. But at the same time, I can't jog in my predominantly wealthy neighborhood. I can't jog in our park without being looked at suspiciously with this hoodie on right here. So it's hard to say, and I do agree with you guys. I just don't think that dwelling on the past as much is the overall answer to being able to push the pace.
Thomas,
that's why you can't jog through your neighborhood, man.
Yeah.
No
Yeah.
We forgive them and we'll let them slide. And then we say, oh, you know what? We'll let them take back what they just said racially about us. That's because we don't hold their feet to the fire. And that means putting them to task and dwelling on the fact. You know what you didn't do? Your mother, I'll tell you one thing about it. If you grew up in a household with a mom or a dad or both parents, you're not going to keep pissing them off without them saying something. And you're going to fall in line with the agenda, or you're going to get the hell up out that door. Because the fact of the matter is they want you to dwell on what they want done. Until you do what they want done, they're going to break you. You're going to be bumping up against them. And one of y'all going to win. The one that makes the other one dwell upon the past, you're going to dwell on this. I want these floors swept. I want that bedroom cleaned up. I want them clothes washed. I want that front lawn cut. Guys, that's holding people to task. Things that you should be doing, you need to do that. They need to cut the damn grass. They haven't cut the grass yet. And we're going to hold them to task until they do their job. We're going to make them dwell on it, because until then, you can't jog through your neighborhood without suspicion, with a hood on your head. But you got Skittles and iced tea, and you ain't doing nobody no dang going harm. You're just doing your everyday thing like every other white American, black American, Asian America. Okay? You're doing the same thing they doing. But you know what? Until we make them dwell on it, they don't have to. You know, a person does not have to do anything that you're not going to hold them to their feet to the fire. And this is the problem right now. We have a society, we ain't playing chess, we playing checkers. And we keep playing chess with these folks, they're going to keep winning. They're going to keep winning until we hold them.
Just real quick, I agree. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Our comment here is learning Black history is not dwelling on the past. Instead, it should serve as an inspiration to reach a person's full potential. Other races look to their history with pride. Why not us?
Yeah.
Yeah.
On that part of go ahead.
My thing is not.
So you're saying the Jews?
I'm sorry.
You're saying the Jews don't dwell on the past?
No, my thing is not to not dwell.
They do dwell on the past. They remind people. That's why Israel is such a force. They remind their enemies, listen, we remember what your mother did to us. We're not going to let you mofos do that no more. We holding you with the well. We keep the past so much in our sight that we have a military force that we're ready to execute our justice, judgment, and our equity at any given time. So if you all think that dwelling on the past, man, shoot. You don't learn from history, you repeat it. That's why the Jews do what they do. If anybody think they don't dwell on the past, they got tattoos on their arm holding it to the past when they got what they got in Auschwitz. So y'all can keep that right there. I mean, I know you mean well with it, but it ain't gonna hold it. That bucket don't hold no water. Not any given day of the week.
What I'm trying to explain is there's a vast difference between dwelling on something and learning something. I'm not saying we need to learn the gist of our history and put it to pass there. I'm not saying that we need to forget the bigotry and atrocities and the tyranny faced by American people every day. I'm saying that the best way to move forward is to have the mentality that if you don't do it for me, I'll go out and I'll do it myself. The same things, and what I'm trying to get trying to say in the overall picture is that the same thing on dwelling on our past is the same reason why we still live and take accept government assistance, Section 8 homing, food stamps, and link cards. This is the same reason why we accept these things, because we have this mentality thing, and that this is the mentality that we're getting, is that we're blaming someone else. Whereas in this society today, the answer maybe 30 years ago would be to dwell, but the answer for me I think the best answer for us today, especially for our future and our youth, would be to show them, to push the agenda that you have to do it yourself. Nothing stopped. I'm 23 years old. I'm very successful. I'm a veteran. I don't need for anything. And that's in me not dwelling on the past, and me not having that point my finger blame at someone else has given me and made me acquire the things that I have in life. And I'm not saying that that's the story for everybody, but what I'm saying is that in order to push that agenda to move forward would be the best thing for us to do is to not have that, that mentality to just stick around and say, hey, well, he did this to us, so we can't move forward, or we need reparations for something that you did to us. None of us has been a slave, is what I'm trying to say. We all have the ability to manifest our own destiny.
People have been slave by mentally, and
I agree.
Spoke about dividing, like that was embedded, saying that's not nothing we knew, that was embedded in our heads, when you put light skin versus dark skin, all that division in that Roman talk, like they took that and they embedded it in our class of, how we thought and how we operated. So, and then, you even have these gangs now. Gangs used to be, for the community and et cetera. But again, that division, that's what they want. So that's not something I think that, all of us are thinking like, oh, da da da. But I think that's something that's been embedded down to the foundation of the roots, even with, generations on and generations upon our families. So that division is which is what you see today, But I do agree with you saying now we need to push forward, but at the same time, we still need to have that in our mind frame. Like, okay, we still need to be learning, and what can we do better upon what happened in our history, But that division, that wasn't created by us. That's them that embedded us.
Yeah.
I agree about the Black history. I'm not saying about Black history. What I'm saying is teach American history, teach the whole story, and teach it truthfully. And I feel like if we had our American history in the rawest and purest form, there would be no need for that word dwell, is what I'm meaning. And I'm not trying to offend anyone or anything.
No offense.
And I just want to know. I just want to push it. I just want to have that. I want to make it notable that there's a vast difference between learning something and dwelling on something. We, you guys can go ahead. I'll piggyback later.
Here's a question. Where is the connection with structures in place that have prevented scores of Blacks from living up to their full potential? So I hear you, Thomas, when you're saying, personal responsibility and bridge the gap, that's where we're headed. And we've got some really great things coming up, and we're about to be really pushing our financial literacy piece and great things coming. And we definitely are about personal responsibility. But do you see a connection with structures that have historically been put into place that prevented people before you? You're a 23-year-old man, so people before you, where are you acknowledging that there were structures put into place that maybe prevented your people before you?
Oh yeah, definitely. I definitely understand that. And the biggest thing is, the way we were treated, the way that we were taught. I mean, there was a book wrote on how to keep us in line as a slave, the Willy Lynch theory. I understand that. And that same theory is literally manifesting itself into our society today. Hate the light-skinned person, hate the dark-skinned person, hate the woman, hate the man, push the man out of the home. All of that, I understand that. The same reason why we accept government assistance, like I said, Section 8 and food stamps, because why wouldn't you want to pay $30 a month for rent and live in this sub-city in this 7-block radius? Of course, I understand that. I understand that, we all are reciprocals of what happened to us years ago. But what I'm saying now is that as our youth, people my age, how do you connect with those people is a whole different way. It is not put in that form of dwelling. I think that the best thing for us to do is, in order to connect to our youth now, the people who are in gangs, who doesn't live by the way that the gangs really were structured for, who doesn't have the ability and have the resources that I have now, that I had to obtain hardly to get. you know. But I think the best way to reach those people is to push the pace of do it yourself. No one owes you anything. We all want our 40 acres and a mule. That's how America is. We learned that Columbus, you know, we were taught that Columbus found America and did this. We wasn't taught that he was a serial killer, a rapist, and a pillager. We never knew that, you know. Then it took upon our own research to find those things. And that's the same, and that's literally the same story about America. That's the same thing about America completely. We are a story of violence, negativity, distraught, and one man up to the next. That's what America is. But if you want to live in America and you want to push that pace to be, you know, a formidable society, a member of society, you need to be able to push the pace that no one owes you anything. And if you want to go get it, you have to go get it yourself. And that's all I'm saying.
Thomas, I see where you're coming from. I think sometimes we put our personal accomplishments and we allow that to be our way of saying like everyone can do it.
Model.
You know what I'm saying? But one fact I learned, you know, through reading and listening to Dr. Clyde Anderson that really caught my attention was he said, you know, and after the Civil War in 1865, blacks, we owned less than 2% of all the wealth in this country. And today, fast forward 500 years or whatever number it is later, we still own less than 2%. Like, to me, that's just amazing. So I think sometimes when, you know, when people look back and they say, yeah, but blacks are doing better because they look at people who are successful, you know, look at Oprah, look at LeBron. But when you look at us as a complete race, we still own less than 2%. We own, and this country is your opportunities in life dictates off of what you own and control, right? So if we own and control less than 2%,
right?
How do we expect to be competitive as a race? And listen, I just want to be on the record to say I have nothing against any other race, whether it's white, Indian, Mexican. Some of my best friends are. My best friend is Indian. You know what I'm saying? Like, but I feel like, you know, once you talk about black issues, that's when things become very sensitive. People don't want to talk about it. Oh, let's not talk about that. You know, because we've been associated very sensitive to this. So, Thomas, yeah. I see what you're saying. You know, dwelling on our history doesn't solve it, but I also think that understanding our history helps us learn how can we move forward as a race. Because if we don't learn and if we don't know our history, you know, it's not about just dwelling on it. Right? Because what we see on the news today, when we see, you know, these kids, you know, these young kids, they're sitting out there robbing, killing, shooting, murdering. That's because of what? That's because of lack of resources, right? It's a lack of education. That's why it's called Bridge the Gap. There's so many gaps. There's an equity gap. There's so many gaps.
Miss Porter has her hand up. True teacher form.
Go ahead, Miss Porter. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh my God, I wanted to jump in several times. So 2 points I want to make really, really quickly is number one, in order for us to understand why we are where we are today, it's more than just looking at our history. Mm-hmm. It's really looking at the structures that have been in place since our country was founded. None of this is by accident. Nothing is a happenstance when it comes to the second-class citizenship that Blacks have historically and today continue to receive. It's not a happenstance. Why do I say second-class citizenship? If we look at how polarized we are in our country under Trump, a lot of the policies that he created or his team created was really going after those most vulnerable communities. For example, in Black neighborhoods, they start pulling out the first thing, mailboxes. Yep. They start taking away the mailboxes. In the city of Chicago, they got tens of thousands of pieces of mail that have yet to be delivered. That was not an accident. Mr. Dixon brought up the Voting Rights Act that they keep talking about. If you all have been paying attention, not only are they trying to dismantle legislation that was fought for in the 1960s that white women also benefited from,
All right.
Like Title IX, that came out of the civil rights legislation that was created and that white women benefited from. If you look at all of those games, they are systematically trying to erase the ability for us to at least be on equal footing. You talk about education. All of these studies have been done that more Black boys are suspended often, are in special ed, are left behind than any other group. The Latino community is far surpassing the Black community when it comes to going to school and becoming educated. That's not an accident. So we have to look at the structures that exist. And then recently on C-SPAN, the United States government wanted to take to task, I don't know if you guys have heard of the 1619 Project. A group of scholars started looking at African American history and put out a magazine last year called the 1619 Project. Trump wanted them arrested. He wanted the group disbanded. It was all over C-SPAN. And in order to control people, you got to control the information they receive. And the last point I want to make is we in a Black community want to look at others. If you make it, if I make it, you can make it too. And what we have got to stop doing as a people, we have got to stop judging where we are and where other folks are. Because, and I tell my students this all the time, every Black person is not the same type of Black person. We are not. And we need to understand that we are different. And when it comes to teaching history, when Thomas, when you brought up Christopher Columbus, my class did an activity where we put Christopher Columbus on trial for the murder of millions of Taino Indians. I do believe in teaching the truth. I do believe that everybody deserves a voice regardless of their race, their ethnic background, their gender, or their age. And until we bring more voices into the room, when it comes to history of this country, so many voices are left out. The reason I love hip hop so much, hip hop was born out of the idea that Black youth needed a voice. They needed to talk about what was going on in their own communities in the 1970s. Nobody was giving Black teenagers a voice. They had to take that, they had to claim that. And we need to be proud. The reason students don't want to study Black History Month is we always teach Black history from a perspective of we lost something. All we was enslaved. We never teach the beauty or the creativity around what Blacks brought to this country. We never say in order for them to survive, they had to be very strong. We don't teach our kids that. We don't teach that they are descendants of folks who were able to survive a passage, able to survive being enslaved. And those are the people who gave birth to you today. And until we start teaching history from a position of strength, we are going to have scores of young people that don't want to hear about it. Because they see the struggle, they experience the struggle every day. Where do they experience the beauty of what it means to be Black? And we don't do enough of that.
Exactly. I like that.
I like that too.
I think that's what the how this topic of discussion came up, because Miss Porter and I worked together, and she was running the Black History program, and rather than highlight the struggle, we wanted to highlight examples of Black excellence. And so when I reached out to the few men that I'm close to, and I was at first met with some hesitancy when saying, hey, make me a video of just yourself so I can show my youth Black excellency, because these men I think are excellent. And it was initially met with some hesitancy as like, well, and like, it shouldn't be aligned just to Black History Month though. That should just, my students should see that all the time. And we need examples like that and mentors like that for our young people all the time.
Yes.
I think that I think that there's that the lines of being I'm sorry. I feel like one, I agree with you guys on the reason and the cause, but at the same time, I'm sorry, Miss Porter said, we need to stop being able to. We need to stop. I forgot. I'm sorry, I forgot how to phrase what you said, but you were saying that my story basically shouldn't be the representation of the story for everybody that's growing up in our cities. But at the same time, all my struggles were similar to most people who grew up in Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
And I use my story because I faced a lot of hardships, turmoil, trials and tribulations, of course, and just more than the normal person, but not. It's so common to the regular Chicago kid from Chicago. My story is just so common to that they don't even know that is wrong. That what we are experiencing is even trauma. I had PTSD, just not diagnosed. I had PTSD before I even went into the military. And so I use my story because I came from literally sharing a bag of chips with my brothers for dinner. And I'm one of 7 kids, to being able to live in a $2 million home. And I'm saying that to say, not because, I'm trying to just tell you that if I can do it, you can do it too. But I'm saying it because no one else teaches us this. And that line between academic learning and mental stability learning should be perpendicular with one another in a whole and wholesome. I believe that, you can
Oh, he cuts out.
You can teach an academic. Can you guys hear me?
Yes,
yeah, we can hear you
now
now, Thomas.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. That what we're learning academically has to go in line with our intellectual mindset, the mindset that we are who we are. We can't change that, but we can change how we are perceived. We can change what we wear. We can change how we present ourselves to the person. I believe that my first impression is the lasting impression on anybody that I walk into their life. But in order for everyone to feel like that, in order for all of us to feel like that, we have to have a built foundation from home of mental excellence, of mental stability, intellectual stability. And I think that's what we need more than an academic lesson on that. That's all I'm saying. I'm not disagreeing, and I definitely believe in our Black history. I believe it's American history. I believe that we shouldn't separate it and call it Black history or white history. I believe that we're all American, so it should all be just history in itself. And so that's my biggest point.
Crystal, I know
I'm letting everyone marinate for a moment.
Yeah, you have and I appreciate you sharing your story. Your story is very inspirational, and definitely can inspire a lot of people. Man, I mean, that's a lot. That's a lot to take in, and I just want to just say, I want to thank you all for just sharing, truly how you feel. I've actually never had a conversation like this before. I've never had a conversation like this before where I have such
and
knowledgeable.
It gets deeper, honestly.
Yeah, man. I've never had a conversation where some people is actually knowledgeable and know history and actually have an opinion and actually know what they're. This. Go ahead, Mr. Dixon. I'm sorry.
Oh no. I'm in agreement with you that and with everyone, we have got to get to a place where the history includes our history. And another thing,
perfectly said.
Thank you. Until we get to a place, we must be mindful, and this is why I run to a lot of brothers, some sisters sometimes, but mostly brothers. Is that illusion of inclusion, where you really, really think, you done made it. I just, I'm mindful of a lot of things. and there's some places we can't go yet because we haven't been invited. And the only reason why we haven't been invited is because of the color of our skin and because people have disqualified us. Now we got a couple of people that have made it, but don't have no illusion about the fact that the floodgates are open. The floodgates are not open. We still don't have equal access, and we don't have equal opportunity. And it hurts my heart when I see the PPP loan money out there, and I run into all these people. That's where information comes. All these people of color have these small businesses, they're sole proprietorships, and you know what? Joe Biden had to open up this gate for 14 days, for 2 weeks rather, that people that got these sole proprietorships, employees in 10 and under, they were really talking about sole proprietorships, can now come get this money. I'll tell you, last round of PPP money, we couldn't get no sole proprietorships done. You know why? Because the banks don't respect them. You know why? Because that's where most minority businesses dwell, at the river of sole proprietorships. They don't cross over to S corps, C corps, LLCs, because they don't have the information. A lot of them are dispelled from it because they don't see the abundance of those with LLCs, with C corps, with S corps, doing it and making it. They hear about Oprah Winfrey, Jay-Z, P. Diddy, Robert Shaw. They hear about a couple of people. So Lewis included. When you look at where we're going, just be mindful of the illusion of inclusion. You find a lot with our athletes, black athletes. The black athletes, they do things white athletes don't do. And it's only because the limited education coming up and where they went to school at. And don't even get me into the busing system back in the day. It's incredible that it even took place. I'm not one of those people that I subscribe to desegregation. I'm one of those people, listen, don't send me to a school 20 miles, 30 miles away. Build a school where I'm 5 minutes away. But they didn't want to do that. You see how, so now getting off into it, now you got this swath of African Americans that go off to these white schools and they come back to their black communities at the end of the day. Man, they started building, we're going places. But you know what? They said you. That shows you still don't have equal access. Why? Because I'm going to pick you come, you. Now the rest of y'all staying at raggedy ass high school, at raggedy ass elementary school. So we're gonna take these token Negroes and we're gonna bust them across town so they can see that there's a glory and there's a man that you can have a great getting up morning, that you're gonna have a day of reckoning. And you know what? They take them across town, they bring them back, and then they go off, they get this nice education, and then they still can't get at the boardroom table with a PhD, with a master's degree. Ain't no equal access, but you did get that illusion of inclusion. That bad fella, it tickled your fancy for a while until you had a wake-up call. And we have to be mindful of that. And everybody, someone was alluding to this. Everybody ain't gonna be an entrepreneur. Everybody ain't gonna want to strike out on their own. Most people are meant to be mentally white, black, red, brown, yellow. They're meant to be 9-to-5 sharecroppers. And I hate to say it, they're meant to be 9-to-5 people. They're just gonna be that. Why? The poor you have with you always, and that's about the mental quality of thinking. Some people think that an education is meant so that they can go get a decent job until the day they die and work for somebody. And you got to be okay with them doing that, because you're going to waste your time. I'm 56 at this game. I've done over $100 million in funding. Now, I'm going to tell you one thing that I've learned. Everything ain't for everybody. And everybody ain't fit for the road. And everybody is not going to the promised land. Just face it. But if we give them equal access, equal opportunity, they can never deny it. But right now, even those that want to launch out, want to do better, go get a PhD, go get a master's degree
Sorry.
You know,
You're talking, and we have a couple of comments. Speak, Mr. Dixon. Structural racism in Willis wagons in Chicago is what when you were talking about the busing in Chicago.
The reason I put in a Willis wagons is exactly what Mr. Dixon was talking about. But in Chicago, instead of creating bigger schools in Black communities, the superintendent, the head of CPS at that time, had those trailers put into the parking lots of schools, and they were called Willis wagons. So instead of giving Black communities better schools and bigger schools, he just stuck the kids in parking lots in these trailers, because there was no busing in the city of Chicago. And
initially, what's scary about those trailers is that's where special education services in most cases happen. You would go and have to walk into the back, and I know because I was one of them that would have to go into the back into these trailers, and it was predominantly special education. The trailers in the back of the school.
Yeah, but before it was designated for special ed students, it was designated Black students.
Right.
And so this thing,
there's a disproportionate number of Black and brown students that receive special education services. So naturally, that was the way to do it, right? To still, when you talk about the illusion of inclusion, yes, it was illusion of inclusion, but realistically, they were just sticking them in the back and saying it's where the special education services are.
I hear an echo. Is that let me see what's coming from.
I lit a car phone speaker.
Wow.
Are we close to are you guys close to, can I say something, or
yeah, of course, man. It's open discussions.
We live in a world, and I think there's a lack of realization that we live in a world of consumers. Okay, there's people who we consume everything. I mean, going to go get gas is a part of consumption. We need someone to run that gas station. We eat every day. We need someone to run those restaurants and those grocery stores that we eat at.
Producers.
Okay. Consumers and producers, of course. And the problem that we're seeing is that there are Black people are the lowest count of people in America, but we hold most of those jobs. I think that's the big problem in most people's eyes. We hold the lower jobs, and like you said, the illusion of the conclusion or something like that. Yeah, I live in a $2 million home, but I couldn't buy that $2 million home anywhere I wanted to in America. There were certain neighborhoods I probably couldn't have bought that this same house in, or even a cheaper house maybe. And I think, and when I put it in that way, all I think is, I think that the best thing for us to do, and the best thing for our youth to do right now, is to create a platform for yourself. And what I want to say is that the best thing to do and the best way to obtain that platform is for it to be taught at home first. Teachers teach academically, but there's a sense of urgency we need in the Black home to push these agendas. That school is important. Yeah, I get it that our schools aren't the biggest and our schools aren't the best, but we have free schooling. Why can't we make the most of what we have in our free schooling? But I think that's a part of our home teaching at home are we being given that sense of urgency that to make the most out of what we have? If everybody came to school, no matter how little, how dirty the school is, if everybody came to school with the mindset that today I want to learn something more than I ever could, and I want it to be better than I am yesterday, I bet we learn a lot more no matter what the setting is. The same way that my setting growing up didn't deprive me of obtaining a substantial living. And I think that's my biggest thing right there, is that I agree with you guys. It's just that times are changing, and a way to get through our people now has to change and elevate as well. In order to communicate with our youth, you have to do it differently now. Unfortunately, you can't, there's no just lead by example anymore. There's a structural way that we have to do this now. And I think the best thing for it to happen is to start at home. And that's the biggest thing for me, I believe.
When it comes to the home, when it comes to the home, though, we have to remember, like you said, not to dwell on the past, but let's just say, I'm 14 and I don't know about my history, and we have to realize is that the home for Blacks was destabilized. So with that being in mind, if we can surpass that, then I understand what you're saying, but our whole foundation has been destabilized, and it's even worse now. So I understand, like, when one of us makes it and we're saying, oh, okay, I made it, well, you can do it too. And don't get me wrong, I've been in that mindset where you're making a lot of money, you're like, oh, I'm good, da da da. But it's a bigger picture here. We're the only race that doesn't look out for each other, and that's been embedded in our head too.
Yeah, I mean,
there's a lot of fundamentals that we have to actually dwell on for us to understand where we're going.
Quick thing on that.
We don't practice group economics.
Sorry, Tyler. I just want to say, so I'm in the HVAC industry. I own a company that employs 50 people. I have 50 employees. 75% of my employees are African American. I must say, though, out of the 75%, the sense of entitlement and the sense of I owe you, that lack of urgency to come in your job every day and want to do it the best of your ability, it lacks a little bit inside of the Black American people who work for my company. I'm the sole owner, another Black man, and they look at me as someone who should be given a break. That differently. That's a problem from the way we were taught in home. And I get it that, we're destabilized. We never had a solid foundation to even know. How can you learn something that you don't know needs to be taught? Like I said, of course we all want to go live in, of course we all want the government assistance if we only got to pay $40 a month in rent. You don't know that there's a problem with you only having to pay $40 in rent. I get that, Tyrone. But like I said, that it's a mental thing. So the question should be, how do we surpass that mental gap, that real brain issue, not academically, because we can learn the academics, it's there, but it's how do we push past that? How do we put that sense of urgency in today's parents to teach their youth how to manifest their own destiny? Because no matter how we put it, you manifest your own destiny. What you want out of your life, you can make it out of your life, no matter what holds you down, no matter what you think. It's a mental thing. You manifest your own destiny. And that's just the point right there, And I agree with you guys. I definitely do. And I'm not disagreeing. I'm just saying that the way that we go about getting to today's youth has to be in a different dynamic than just speaking on, what we've endured in our times and then just leaving it there. I'm not saying don't learn it. I'm just saying don't dwell on something that's happened but cannot be changed. Dwell on something that can change, and that's our future.
Well, I think some points you're making are important. I think another thing that you have to look at, you got two things going on. You got entitlement, which I agree a lot of that goes on, but then you got white privilege. You got two things going on in our society that's heavy. Okay? Both of them we are internalized in because, one, white privilege affects us. Two, you as a successful African American or even an African American female, you're gonna face something that your people are going to look at you and treat you a different way, and they're going to think that you're supposed to give them something because now you slip to the other side, and there's a whole nother group of people that have white privilege, and they think they're supposed to have it because of who they are. So now you're dealing with, and you're this one Black person, you got the white privilege working against you because you're going after that contract for that AC. Two, you got the people working for you. Watch this. You got the people working for you, and they want you to see them as special because you one of them. The entitlement kicks in. And you know what? You got yourself a motherfucking whirlwind to deal with. Excuse my language, but
Yes,
you do.
sir.
So
Yes, sir.
it's a heavy cross to bear, man. It's a heavy cross to bear. It ain't no easy road. And I want to tell you something as a businessman. They ain't gonna do nothing but get lonelier. That's all.
Yes,
Man, I'm
really, really.
gonna tell you that. Oh man, listen, bro, brace for it. It's gonna get lonelier, but watch this. No matter what go down with you, as long as you are sure about you and you love you, all that entitlement folk, all them stuff, them white privilege folk, or whoever they are, you're gonna sail past them, man, because you're on a mission. I feel you're on a mission. I see you on a mission. I'm not, some things we might not agree on, but one thing that I agree on with you is that you know what, you went for it, you got it, you done it, okay, and you have a right to have your opinion. You have a right to think a certain kind of way. Just keep the door open for your other brothers and sisters. Keep your mind open for your brothers and sisters. That's all you got to do. But
So how do you?
Go ahead.
How do you let our brothers and sisters know that door is open? How do we get it out there? And I'm talking about our youth, not someone 50 years old that had lived their life. I'm talking about people who are still fresh and impressionable. How do we get to those people? How do I open that door and let them know that, hey, my door is open, even though I've already employed them?
So just a couple of comments real quick. We only see entitlements when we talk about Blacks, but we call it nepotism when it comes to white people. And to your 50-year-old already lived your life, Miss Porter says, hey, I'm 50 and I'm still learning. And I think it's just levels of learning. Yes, and Miss Porter, you have your hand raised. You could jump in. You don't need to raise your hand.
Well, I'm a teacher. The occupational hazard. But I did. So I do want to say this, particularly to Thomas, as a business owner, you are in such a unique position. And some of it is about training. One thing you got to remember about Blacks as a race, we're very communal. We're very communal. So sometimes it's not the idea that I feel like I'm entitled, but it's the idea that I feel like I'm connected to you. And as the business owner, in your training, in your conversations, people don't know what they don't know until they are enlightened. So when you are with your employees that have these issues, sometimes you have to have those courageous conversations and understand that people need to be re-educated because we've been miseducated.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And if I come from a household where nobody ever went to a job and stuff still got done, then I don't know what the expectation is for me as an employee. And I want to say something real quickly. I have several degrees. 2 summers ago, I could not find a summer job to feed my kids.
Wow.
I could not find a job. It was not until someone allowed me to work on their food truck at an event. And it wasn't because of lack of education. It wasn't because I didn't interview well. It's because everywhere I went, I was confronted with subtle forms of racism. People interviewing me, I had more education to them. I knew that. They knew I had more education than them. But I wanted to work because teachers don't get paid over the summer. So the point I'm trying to make is I got a better view of what the real struggle is when I wasn't able to feed my kids because I couldn't get a job. And it had nothing to do with qualifications. It had everything to do with who was the one hiring. And they did not look like me. And so those structures still exist.
Mhm.
And when we are working in the workplace and people don't know, like I teach high school students, I tell them all the times, you got to learn how to code switch. The way you talk in the hood is not the way you're going to talk when it's time to get a job. And being on time for class is important because that's a life skill. But if nobody's having those conversations at home,
Come
you
on,
can expect
come on.
the students to know it. And I hate to say it, parents send us the best that they have, but some of our parents didn't have a good foundation themselves.
Come
And
on.
so it's just a perpetual cycle.
Yeah.
So as a business owner, you're in such a unique position where you could train people to do better because you know better, and that will help them. So don't like penalize their way of thinking, show them something different. Because you don't know, you could be the reason that they learn different and then they take that learning back into their home, into their community.
Mhm.
I think, and let me say this to Thomas. I think, and everyone must recognize this. The way Thomas thinking isn't wrong, but that's his toughness.
Yeah.
That's his protection. That's his
Yeah.
gate. And he got to keep that gate because motherfuckers will run him over, and then he'll be back where he once was. And we'll be like, oh man, so I understand where you're at, Thomas. I understand that thinking. Be cautious, be kind, be the forward thinker, protect your eye gate, your ear gate, protect your heart. And that's all you do. You're displaying things of protection, which I'm not surprised by. Okay, I'm not surprised by it. But I want to throw this at you real quick. You asked the question, there's some things you're gonna throw, some things are gonna be caught. That means you're gonna give somebody some information, boom, and you ain't gonna see them no more. And you're gonna get that information because it's like some things are caught and some things are taught. There's some people that's gonna come back around you and they're gonna really be, as the young lady just said, enlighten. Now you enlighten them. Now they're saying, man, he just said something or did something. I saw him be part of something, and let me find out what that something is. Now, some things you're just gonna have to throw out there. They're gonna have to catch it. It is up to them for them to how they, as Oprah Winfrey says, they aha moment. Okay, and they're gonna go on and they're gonna investigate that. But one thing about it, it tells me that something somebody did, you caught, or something somebody did and they taught you. One or two things happen for you to be where you're at today. And that's all. That's what life is, man. It's throwing and catching. Some people have to take that walk, man, take that journey. And that's what we're doing.
Well, we are over time, so I want to just maybe do a quick whip around to ask this final question. What now? So if we are going to say we have bridged the gap and we're, working with young people, high school, college age youth, what do we tell them? What do we do with them?
Gotta hold them accountable to something. That's why we have such a reckless generation.
Mhm.
They're not accountable to anything. They think they're equal to us because they can be on the internet like us. They got a cell phone like us. They got access to transportation like us. They got everything that we got, but they ain't got no accountability. Ain't nobody holding them accountable. So when we don't hold them accountable, what do they do? Because the households are not holding them accountable. And when you start dealing with you, it's a factor. You're gonna weed out a lot of folks, but there goes your tort and your court. And you put that out there. You put that out there with the youth, and you let them know. Listen, are you gonna hold yourself accountable to be somebody? Whether you go off and get a degree, or you go off and get a degree and start a business, or you go out and go out and start a small business and do something on that level. I used to be a door-to-door salesman for years at 9 years old. It's gonna start someplace. So we gotta hold these young people accountable. I stopped there. Hold them accountable.
I think one big problem, some of our students, or some of the young people don't see themselves living to be our age. They don't see it. They experience death a lot. And so they don't prepare for the future because they don't see themselves as having a future. I have a 15-year-old son, and what keeps me awake at night is what he is exposed to and what I have kept away from him. Because I know I've done him a disservice.
Mm-hmm.
He's at a private school. It's extremely racist, but it's safe. But I've done him a disservice because he will not, his interactions with people that look like him, they're not going to see private school educated. So we have to let our young people know that they do have a future. Their future can be whatever they want and whatever they're willing to work to do, but they do have a future. Everybody don't die at 16.
Come on.
And I think that's the conversation we need to have. They need to see their own longevity, and I don't think they see it.
Yeah. I love that. You're right about that.
I love that too. Thank you, Ms. Porter.
Tyrone, Thomas.
For me, I think just showing them something different.
That's gonna be mine.
I can remember being shown different things, different aspects of life. Seeing the same negative, things we see every day, that takes a toll on the mind frame. And as Thomas said, having that strength to push forward and that mental capacity, I think that's what generation needs, being shown just different. It doesn't even matter, just be different, maybe taking a trip somewhere else, or, a book showing them something different, looking at something different online, there's so many variables to that, but just showing them something different than what they see every day.
Yes, I like that.
Long, like Mrs. Porter said, longevity is key. And I think the biggest importance or what now answer should be where we fall. Understand that staying down some to learn why you fail. Take the 10 seconds, get up at 9. You get, when you're in a boxing match, you get 10 seconds to stand back up. Take 9 seconds and then get up. I think that the best thing for us to do is for us to learn that, like you said, exposing something different. So when I say my story, that's me trying to expose that there is something different, but to also understand the dynamics of and importance of what it takes to maintain that. I went from being really poor to a point where now I bear the responsibility of employing 50 other families. I taking care of 50 other families. I bear that responsibility every day. And I think the biggest thing is that it's so hard because I already know that I can go and make $30,000 in a month standing on a corner. But I'm going this legal way and it's so hard because it's hard to maintain in a lifestyle that wasn't meant for me to begin with. And when we realize that in exposure, I think is longevity, difference, showing something different, like Tyrone said, but exposure, I think, is the biggest thing. Really look where we are in our urban areas and how we are developing, how we go to the store and swipe a blue card that the government gave us for food, how we sell that card sometimes on Facebook for a little extra money. I think we have that exposure to learn that we don't even know what's outside of our 7-block radius, because the next 7 blocks is a whole different game that will kill us if we go to that side. And that point right there is, I just feel that the exposure of something different, to know that there's a better life out there, that the life we were born with isn't always the life we were meant to live, that you can manifest your own destiny as long as you want to, but no one else can want success for you as bad as you want it for yourself. And that is the biggest darnest thing. And it's the hardest lesson to learn, no matter how academically gratifying you are, no matter how substantial you are in your mental health and your mental state, is that no one can want it as bad as for you, as bad as you want it for yourself. And you have to go and get it. And I think that that's the biggest thing. And you know, mental toughness in itself is what we were built, as what America was built on. And that's the only way to strive and to not have to strive in an American society.
That's my student. That's all I'm saying.
Wow.
My student right there.
There we go.
I knew him when he was doing spoken word and rapping, and I'm like, that young man right there has power with his words. I'm just saying. I don't know if you remember that, Thomas. I think I still have videos.
Oh yeah, I definitely
have videos of you.
Can never forget.
I might use that one day. That was like,
you all are amazing. And like I said before, this is a very, man, I've just never ever had a conversation like this before. So, you know, thank you, Thomas. Thank you, Mr. Dixon. Thank you, Mrs. Porter. Thank you, Tyrone. You know, thank you, Crystal, for setting this up and, you know, knowing such beautiful, amazing, strong people, you know, because, you know, when I talk about, you know, issues and stuff like this, you know, it's I just never had this conversation with people who are so strong and actually know and actually feel it, actually feel where I'm coming from. So just one last thing I'll add on that is where do we go from here? I would just say, you know, respecting and loving each other and understanding that we are exceptional people. You know, I think that's just kind of one thing that was kind of left out. You know, once we love and respect and you know, have a sense of a community, because right now we don't even have neighborhoods. You know, I'm sorry, we don't have communities. We don't have neighborhoods. All we got is a hood. So, you know, I think that once we start to understand and learn how to respect and love and care each other, then I think that's when that gap starts to get filled. So again, you know, thank you all, like from the bottom of my heart. Like this is, you know, one of the most courageous conversations I think we've had so far on a topic that's so sensitive. So, wow.
Look at you're getting all emotional, y'all. You got to get emotional.
Yeah, man, this is deep. You know, this is deep. So thank you all. Thank you all again.
Thank you,
Crystal, for all into one room. We can have this courageous conversation. So, but hey, that's all I got. I know it's a Sunday, and I know we all got, you know.
Yeah, we went way over. We usually try to keep these conversations within an hour.
This is over now. So this is
yeah.
So again, well, this is the end of Courageous Conversation. I hope you all liked today's conversation. And hey, like I said at the beginning, go ahead and click that like and subscribe, and you will be hearing from us very shortly.
Yeah, stay tuned. We have some huge announcements coming up for Bridge the Gap. Big announcements. We have big things coming. And next Saturday, first Saturday every month is our youth call. So if you are a young person, high school, college age, Thomas age, and interested in bridging the gap, follow us on social media, jump on that Zoom call the first Saturday of every month at 11 a.m. Learn how you can get involved to bridge the gap, because we're getting ready to work on some big things that you're definitely going to want to be a part of, especially if we're talking about personal responsibility, financial wellness. You want to be a part of what we've got coming.
Wonderful.
Have a good day, everybody.
Awesome.
Have a good one. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Yeah.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.